Inflation, 7.9%, the fastest rate since 1982. And my friends, every single month when the new numbers come out, it's going to say the exact same thing. Fastest rate since 1982. Because in the 1980s, the inflation rate hit, I think it was around like 14%. Now, by using today's calculations, we're likely never going to hit those numbers. If we use calculations from the 80s, as I've often said, we would be well over the 1980s numbers. Everybody wants to lie to you. It's really frustrating, man. I wake up and I see all these stories. I see what the White House is putting out, and it's just everybody is lying about basically everything, or they're trying to justify why their opinions are actually fact. Now, for that, I mostly blame news outlets because they're the ones that are like, fact check. My opinion is better than your opinion. And I'm like, ugh, whatever, man. I'll tell you what, though, first and foremost, allergies. Yo, my allergies are so bad, it feels like the flu. No joke. So I'm zonked out. But I wake up in the morning, and I as soon as I wake up, I pull up my phone, and I'm scrolling through, and I'm reading news. I'm seeing what messages I've gotten and stuff like that. To just read news 24/7, basically. And I see all this news about inflation. So we talked about this yesterday with Ryan Long and Danny Polishchuk. It was kind of funny if you missed it on Timcast IRL, where I'm basically like, I don't know what to buy. I bought some swords. The swords aren't even that expensive. I did get some expensive swords, mind you, but I got a bunch of like cheap, swords. And it's we could use them. We have a lot of brush to clear. So I was just like, I'll get some machetes and some swords. It'll be funny. And I got a Wakizashi blade. Wow, I put it behind me. The reason I'm telling you the story is that when I see that inflation is this high, I'll put it this way. If you did not get an 8% raise in the past year, then you are losing buying power. Now, for regular working people, that's nightmarish. So you're getting a paycheck, and as soon as you get it, you got to figure out how to convert that into something. The challenge for most people is you typically have to convert it into bills, to energy, or to rent, food, or medical costs. For people who are making substantial amounts of money, for people who have disposable income, when your paycheck comes in, you buy swords with it. And that's the point. When CNN comes out and says inflation is actually really bad for rich people and it's good for poor people, they're lying. They're outright lying to you. And that's what really grinds my gears. The country is in shambles. It's not the apocalypse. I got to be honest. You can go to the supermarket and you can pick up a cheeseburger. I mean, we still have luxury in this country, but it is getting worse. Now, what's fascinating here is how everybody lies about it, or at least is wrong about it. I can say this to the politicians, to the Republicans and the Democrats. Many of them are perhaps lying outright about the cause of inflation and gas prices and your economic strife. Many of them are just wrong because they only read certain news sources and they don't track data. I have no problem saying, somebody who's trying to be right and getting it wrong is, I can respect their attempts at believing what they believe and trying to do the right thing. Noble. But if you're wrong, causing problems. I mean, here's the big news. Inflation is at 7.9%. But what else do we have? Well, the White House put out this video with Jen Psaki. She said, you may have noticed this week that your gas prices have gone up. A lot of this has to do with Vladimir Putin. No, it doesn't. I mean, well, let me put it this way. A lot of it? Okay, I'd say some of it has to do with Vladimir Putin, and that's the issue. The only way to protect the U.S. over the long term is to become energy independent. I do agree with that completely. Let me play a little bit of this soundbite for you. And again, and I'm going to show you what Republicans are saying, and I'll show you what the New York Times is saying, and how they're trying to lie and manipulate.
I've noticed this week that your gas prices have gone up. I want to talk to you a little bit about why. A lot of it has to do with Vladimir Putin.
Why? They're calling it Putin's gas price hike. Now, here's what you got to watch out for. Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine. That will have an impact on gas prices, especially in Europe. And with the constraint and the problems we're seeing there, Europe will affect the U.S. and, it's all tied together. Vladimir Putin, or I should say Russia, they do produce a large amount of oil and we do import it. But why is it Putin's price hike when gas prices were already going up? The New York Times, in trying to criticize Republicans, ignores that the White House is calling this Putin's gas price hike. I am sick of the lies. Let me play this message from Jen Psaki so you can hear and we can criticize it.
The reality is that Russia is one of the 3 largest oil producers in the world. And the fact that they have started this conflict, invaded a foreign country, and they are such a big producer of oil in the world is the reason why the global oil markets are disturbed right now and why your gas prices are going up.
Lie. Vladimir Putin's invasion does play a role in how gas prices do go up. And I'm not here to play any agendas for Democrat or Republican. I'm here to tell you the truth. The truth is there are a lot of factors that play into gas prices. Many of them are unseen. Now, this one is very obvious. It will play a role in this. But she says it is the reason your gas prices are going up. That is not true, okay? This is the Democrat White House trying to deflect blame for direct actions taken by the Joe Biden administration that have resulted in gas prices going up. Their allies, the New York Times, try to deflect this point as well. I do think it is fair to say we will see a massive spike in gas prices because of the invasion in Ukraine, regardless of whether or not Joe Biden banned oil imports. That, I believe, is true. Joe Biden banning energy imports from Russia will drive those prices up even further, but they've only just done that. So we will not see the direct impact of that for maybe a week or two, actually maybe a month. It takes around a month, my understanding is about a month, to ship oil on these tankers to other parts of the country, to other parts of the world, in which case we're not going to see the price increases, direct price increases for some time. There will be speculative price increases. We'll get to that in a second, but let me play more from Jen Psaki.
The president's going to do everything he can to bring down the price of gas for the American people. But there are a few facts you should be aware of.
That's a lie about the president doing everything he can to bring down the price of gas. And I'll show you why. Joe Biden has actually shut down oil and gas leases over a climate cost battle in the U.S. He's banned fracking on public lands. He's shut down Keystone XL. Now, Keystone XL was not delivering oil right now, but it does impact speculative costs. It does perpetuate speculative cost increases the same way Vladimir Putin's invasion would. So I'll explain that in a minute. Let's play more.
U.S. production of oil and gas is rising. In fact, in the first year of the Biden presidency, there was more oil and gas produced in the United States than the first year of the Trump presidency.
The first year of the Trump presidency. You see, under the Trump presidency, Donald Trump removed a bunch of environmental restrictions and created incentives to get oil companies to start producing again. So, of course, in the first year of Joe Biden's presidency, there would be more gas produced. Easy enough.
And there's opportunities to produce more from here. But part of this is on the oil companies.
That's true,
Right
too.
now, there are 9,000 approved unused permits that oil and gas companies could tap into now to ramp up production.
I don't know about that one. That gets into the nuance of politics around these companies, and I've seen this disputed. But the fact remains, we can and should be ramping up production. However, if you're talking about 9,000 unused, gas and oil permits or whatever, what you got to understand is some areas might have a permit for gas exploration or drilling, and the companies know there's no point in going there. So this point brought up by Jen Psaki, I think, is just it's too vague. It's too vague. You say we've got 9,000 permits. Is one of those permits for like barren land? There's a lot of swaths of land where oil companies will take a look at satellite imagery or geological features and try and figure out if there's oil in the area. They might have a permit to work there, but they might say it's pointless or it's not cost effective. Drilling here would cost us more money than we'd make. Things like that. I'm not saying that's definitively why they're not doing it. I'm saying this point is too vague and does not lend anything to her argument. And it's honestly kind of hard to argue against because it's, again, too vague.
So what the president is doing is ensuring we're taking steps here to get more oil out into the global marketplace. That includes the release of...
Wait. Global marketplace? If you're talking about energy independence, Psaki, shouldn't we be producing oil for ourselves? Look at this.
40 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve back in the fall. And he just announced the planned release of an additional 30 million barrels.
You see, this is a very, very serious manipulation. 30 million barrels sounds like a lot to someone who doesn't know much about what's happening. And they say, oh, okay, 30 million barrels. Wow, that's going to help. That's like a couple days. It's a couple days of oil consumption. Yeah, we're addicted to oil. Yes, I'm a big fan of renewable energies. I think we got to get geothermal. I'm a big fan of exploring tidal energy. Don't know what we're doing with tidal energy. Maybe not doing anything. The tidal energy is cool. You build turbines on the beachfront, and what happens is as the tide comes in, the water rushes through, rising up, spinning turbines. It's amazing. In fact, you could even capture wave energy. I don't think it's very efficient, but the goal is just to get a turbine spinning to generate power. You could use tidal energy. It's fantastic. There's also, I think wind is great. Solar is great. The issue is, are these energy systems, are they going to be working year-round all the time? Well, tidal has problems in winter, solar when it's cloudy or at night, wind when there's no wind. You get the point. Let's listen to more.
The only way to protect the United States over the long term is to become energy independent.
This is correct.
That's why the president has been so focused on investing in clean energy technologies, so that we can rely on that and not President Putin to set the price of gas.
You see, that's a big trick they're trying to do. Oh, it's Putin is setting the price of gas. Putin is not setting the price of gas, my friends. So here's an article from the New York Times, which is an opinion piece masquerading as a fact check. It says, Republicans wrongly blame Biden for rising gas prices. They have pointed to the Biden administration's policies on the Keystone XL pipeline and certain oil and gas leases, which have had little impact on prices. That is a lie. Or I should say, it's an opinion. The reason I'd call it a lie is because when they say little impact, it's an opinion statement. What does little mean? What are your metrics? Little impact. Are you talking about single digit percentage? Is 20% little impact to you considering the price of gas has doubled? Since 2020, the price of gas has almost tripled. So if you're talking about little impact, you could say, well, the things Joe Biden did cause a 32% increase, but that's small compared to, other things. Or are you saying 7% increase? Either way, it does play a role in this. This is the New York Times opinion masquerading as fact. As gas prices hit a high this week, top Republican lawmakers took to the airwaves and floors of Congress with misleading claims that pinned the blame on President Biden and his energy policies. Mr. Biden warned that his ban on imports of Russian oil, gas, and coal announced Tuesday as a response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine would cause gas prices to rise further. High costs are expected to last as long as the confrontation does. Okay. I am going to shatter that narrative with a chart showing you gas prices. We'll play this game, New York Times. While Republican lawmakers supported the ban, they asserted that the pain at the pump long preceded the war in Ukraine. Gas price hikes, they said, were the result of Mr. Biden's cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, the temporary halt of new drilling leases on public lands, and surrendering our energy independence. All incorrect assertions. That's an opinion statement from them, an opinion statement from you. This is what I can't stand. New York Times, Linda Q. You are no better suited to assert your opinion on what is happening to gas prices than any of these Republican politicians. New York Times is so stupid. Ugh. They then go on to quote, many of these Republicans, some of whom look, it's Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy. Not a fan of these guys. Absolutely. Mike Pence, all of these guys, I am no fan of. The claims are misleading. The primary reason for rising gas prices over the past year is the coronavirus pandemic and its disruptions to global supply and demand. Oh, you want to play a dangerous game, New York Times, with your stupid opinions on what's happening. COVID changed the game, not President Biden, said Patrick DeHaan, the head of petroleum analysis for GasBuddy, which tracks gasoline prices. U.S. oil production fell in the last 8 months of the President Trump's tenure. Is that his fault? No. The pandemic brought us to our knees, Mr. DeHaan added. In the early months of 2020, when the virus took hold, demand for oil dried up and prices plummeted, with the benchmark price for crude oil in the United States falling to negative 37.63 that April. In response, producers in the United States and around the world began decreasing output. Okay. Yeah, I know I'm talking really fast, but I want to get through this and talk more about the important issues. What the New York Times has done is they've said that the opinions of Republicans are wrong, but the opinions of this one guy for this one website are right. You see how stupid this game is that they're playing? Yes, it is true. Oil prices went negative. Isn't that crazy? They had so much oil, they couldn't store it, and they were just like, we will pay you to take it. But hold on there a minute. If they had so much oil, they reduced production. Wouldn't that still mean that they were normalizing output? If you have too much oil, so you reduce output, you still have that oil. And then as that oil starts getting taken, you start increasing output. This makes no sense. So it is true that energy prices dropped negative. It was crazy. The U.S. began exporting oil. Let me read more. As pandemic restrictions loosened worldwide and economies recovered, demand outpaced supply. That was mostly attributable to the decision by OPEC Plus, an alliance of oil-producing countries that controls about half the world's supply, to limit increases in production. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has only compounded the issues. When you throw a war on top of this is possibly the worst escalation you can have of this, said Abhiram Rajendran, the head of oil market research at the Energy Intelligence and Energy Information Company. You're literally pouring gasoline on general inflationary pressure. Okay. The opinions of these individuals who work in the oil industry, while I do believe probably hold more weight than Republicans, are still just that, someone giving an opinion. When the New York Times claims that some guys who have opinions are fact checks, they are manipulating you. I could easily take any other energy expert. We have Daniel Turner on Timcast IRL rather frequently from Power of the Future. It's an organization that he runs. He is an expert on energy. Some disagree and say he's not. Why? Because, well, it's politics. And he's talked a lot about all of these energy issues, imports, and very much, I believe he would say, well, Biden takes a lot of responsibility for this. Why not cite him, New York Times? It's interesting, isn't it? Let me show you this. This is the U.S. retail gas price. This is going back 5 years. I have this chart. Now, we can see throughout the Trump administration in 2018, throughout 2017, we were looking at an average around $2.50, $2.50 per gallon. And then into 2018, it went up to it hit 3 and floated around 2.9. Beginning of 2019, gas fell to 2.30. And then throughout 2019, hit 2.9 to $2.90 and started to fall down to about $2.60. In 2020, with the coronavirus pandemic, April was brutal. We saw gas dropped to $1.87 a gallon. Now, a lot of people were celebrating this, gas under $2, but you got to understand this was the pandemic. The demand for gas was very low. People weren't driving. People were working remotely. And because of that, gas prices were negative, or oil per barrel was negative. Now, throughout that year, gas was sitting around $2, $2.20. As soon as Joe Biden gets in office, we start seeing in January, the price starts going up substantially. We then see by June of 21, it's over $3. We then see by November of 21, it's $3.48, hitting $3.50 by November. That is not Vladimir Putin. That is Joe Biden's policies. Not completely. Everything they're telling you, there's always, it's a part of the picture, but not the whole picture. When the New York Times says, the Republicans are wrong, Joe Biden's policies don't play a role, it's minimum, minimal, and what's really happening is the war in Ukraine. Okay, well, let's jump to the 5-day marker. Let's jump to the 1-month marker to get a better view of things. February 21st, we saw gas was at $3.62 per gallon, already up almost $1 from when Donald Trump was in office. By February 28th, 2022, it was at $3.70. But hold on, wasn't there a big old invasion? February 22nd? Well, the exact time and date, you want to talk about it, but sure. Hold on there a minute. Around the same time, we also got this story. Biden halts oil and gas leases amid legal fight on climate cost, directly affecting production. Now, here's my issue. I think it's fair to say the war plays a role. When Joe Biden shut down Keystone XL, we immediately saw a gas price increase. The reason was speculators. Keystone was not delivering oil. And one of the things the fact checkers try to do to trick you is say Keystone wasn't delivering oil, so shutting it down played no role in gas prices. And that's a lie. A lie. When Keystone got shut down, signals were sent to investors and to oil companies. We need this pipeline to transport more oil more efficiently. And without it, it stands to reason that demand will exceed supply, or at the very least, demand and supply will be crunched. That is to say, as more people want the gas, but it's harder to get, the price will go up. This led to speculators exploiting this and buying in. When Joe Biden announced a ban on fracking, the same thing happened. Speculators said, buy the energy now before it's too expensive later. And they did. And many of these people were saying things like, I'm going to buy it now and sell it later, make a lot of money, make a profit. The same could be said for Vladimir Putin. But around the same time as Joe Biden canceling these leases, we get the invasion in Ukraine. How is it then that they're claiming it is the invasion of Ukraine and not what's happening with these oil and gas leases? We've already seen gas prices increase when Joe Biden's policies impacted the market and potential futures. If that's the case, I think there's a fair point to be made that Joe Biden shutting down oil and gas leases over this climate change issue, because there's like a judge's ruling and stuff like that, then that would play a role in gas prices as well. The other question is, if they're going to argue that it's Vladimir Putin causing the price increase, we can see here by March 7th that the average price of gas hit $4.20. It's expected to go up. Joe Biden only just in the past day banned Russian oil imports. If the argument is that the invasion itself caused the spike in prices, why did we not see it in the immediate as soon as the war broke out. There's a lag factor. And if there is a lag factor, isn't it fair to say that we've already seen prices increase based on Joe Biden's banning of Keystone or otherwise? And even if it wasn't that much, we can actually say that when it was announced by the Associated Press that Biden is halting oil and gas leases amid a legal fight on climate cost, this played a big role. Let me tell you the reality here, my friends. It all plays a role. It all does. When the New York Times comes out and says it doesn't, they're lying. They both do. Can I quantify for you, using the data, which plays a bigger role? No. I can't tell you definitively. I've been watching the news on gas prices, and there is a correlation between shutting down pipelines and gas leases and prices. You'd have to be insane not to think that. That they're going to say, a simple math equation. We need 10, we use 10 barrels a day right now. We're going to need 15 barrels a day in the next 5 years. We're also shutting down production right now. So people just simply go, so you're not going to have the 15 barrels a day you need in the next 5 years? Better buy up now because the price is going to skyrocket because demand is going up and supply is being constrained. It's simple, isn't it? The same principle applies to Vladimir Putin. When the war broke out, I believe absolutely that speculators saw this and said, better buy now because if Russia stops exporting oil, it's going to hit everybody. That's what we are seeing now with this price, a multifaceted price increase, which does involve Putin. Is it Putin's gas price hike? No. That's the White House trying to manipulate you because they bear some responsibility here. Is it only just, Biden's actions? No, of course not. Of course, Vladimir Putin's playing a role. And we're seeing a sharp spike. Seriously, if you look at the chart over the past few months, around the time of February 28th, the price jumped substantially. So it is fair to say that we're seeing a massive price increase because of war. War will do that. Okay, fair point. You should understand this. Get mad at Putin's war or whatever. However, if the U.S. was energy independent from the get-go, this wouldn't be an issue. The reason the price of gas is going up is because we're scared that Russia will stop exporting oil or that we won't be able to get it, so speculators believe supply will outpace demand. If the U.S. pushed for energy independence a year ago, and apparently the White House knew this invasion was coming, if Joe Biden did not shut down these leases, if Joe Biden did not shut down Keystone, then confidence would have remained high. And it's possible the war would not have impacted the market as much in the United States. I'm not even getting into the hard data. I just want to point out inflation is through the roof, and it's been through the roof, and it has nothing to do with Vladimir Putin. Inflation is going to impact everything from gas prices to food. Wheat is through the roof. It is not just because Putin declared war. It's a scapegoat. They're trying to manipulate you so you don't blame them. Bad leadership. Putin is a bad guy hanging out with a bunch of bad dudes doing bad stuff, and Joe Biden is a loser. He's failed measurably. He doesn't bear all the blame for this stuff, of course. That would be absurd. COVID happened. But I'm sick of the media lying. To put it simply, if at the start of Joe Biden's presidency, he announced we were going to drill, baby, drill. Maybe not like that. Maybe he said we are going to be ramping up energy production because of the threat of external pressures on gas prices and et cetera. The gas prices would not be at $4 a gallon. You can blame Putin in the immediate. I blame Joe Biden in the long run. He should have prepared for this. I'll tell you a story. When I was 14 years old, I was late to school once. I went to high school for only a few months. In those few months, I had to walk from my house, which was about maybe like 6 blocks from the local high school. One day when I was going to school, a train came, a freighter, and it took like a half an hour. And so I was late. I got to school and they said, "You're late. That's a Saturday detention or whatever." And I was like, Saturday detention? You're not getting me coming on Saturday. But I had to get some paperwork signed or something, I think. And I come home and I told my parents and my dad said, "Why were you late?" And I said, "It's not my fault. There was a train." And he said, "Do you know the train tracks are there?" And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "Do you know that trains sometimes come in the morning?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Then why didn't you prepare to be on the other side of those train tracks before the train came? It's your responsibility to know what variables could inhibit your task." And I was like, "That's a good point. I agree. If I'm supposed to be at a place at a certain time, I can't be like, I know there's trains. I know trains can make me late. I'm going to push it anyway, roll the die, and hope I'm not late." No, the fact is I should be like, I should leave a little bit early to make sure I don't get stopped by a train. And then I wouldn't have been late. Joe Biden can blame, the White House can blame Vladimir Putin all day and night. But if they knew about these potentialities, then it's their responsibility to navigate these outright. And if they can't do it, it's simple. I feel bad. Sorry, Joe, you're trying your best, but your best is not good enough. You are the leader. You've screwed this up. You can point the finger at Putin, but you knew, they all knew, Putin wanted the eastern region in Ukraine. They knew we could not be dependent on Russian oil. What did they do to mitigate it? Nothing. Joe Biden shut down gas. So when they come out and they say he didn't play a role, they are lying. Again, nuance. Biden isn't making this war happen. The war is driving up prices. But Biden failed to prepare for this. They knew it was a risk. Biden actually hindered supply and production and drove speculation through the roof. So don't give me that BS. I'll leave it here. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.